Have you ever stood at a busy intersection, watching cars, people, and goods flow in every direction? The Indo-Pacific region is a bit like that, but on a global scale. It's the world's most dynamic and crowded stage, stretching from the eastern coast of Africa all the way to the western shores of the Americas. This vast expanse of ocean and land isn't just geographically massive, it's where the future of the 21st century is being written. But what makes it so important, and why are so many countries suddenly paying so much attention to it? Today, we're going to break down the complex world of Indo-Pacific geopolitics into something easy to understand. We'll look at the key players, the big challenges, and why what happens here matters to every single one of us, no matter where we live. Let's start with the basics. The term Indo-Pacific itself is relatively new in popular conversation. For decades, we mostly talked about the Asia-Pacific. That term focused heavily on the economic powerhouse nations of East Asia and their trade relationships across the Pacific with North America. But Indo-Pacific expands that view, bringing the Indian Ocean into the picture. Why the change? It recognizes that the Indian and Pacific Oceans are not separate entities, but a single, interconnected strategic zone. The world's busiest shipping lanes, like the Strait of Malacca, weave through this region. Think about it, a huge chunk of global trade, from the smartphone in your pocket to the fuel in your car, travels through these waters. So, control or influence over these maritime highways means immense economic and strategic power. This region is also home to over half the world's population and includes some of the fastest growing economies, like India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. It's a hotspot of innovation, manufacturing, and a rising middle class with huge purchasing power. In short, it's the economic engine of the world. Now, let's talk about the main actors on this stage. The most significant story is the dynamic between the United States and China. China's rapid economic growth and military modernization have made it a dominant force in the region. Through initiatives like the Belt and Road, China has invested billions in infrastructure projects, railways, and highways across Asia and Africa, increasing its economic influence and creating a network of dependent nations. At the same time, its assertive actions in the South China Sea, where it has built and militarized artificial islands, despite international rulings, have raised concerns among its neighbors and the United States. China sees this as securing its backyard and vital trade routes, asserting what it considers its historical rights. On the other side, you have the United States, which has been the traditional security guarantor in the Pacific since World War II. The US has a network of formal alliances with countries like Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines. From Washington's perspective, China's rise threatens the free and open nature of the Indo-Pacific, challenging the rules-based international order that has ensured relative peace and freedom of navigation for decades. The US strategy, therefore, is to reinforce its alliances, conduct freedom of navigation operations with its navy to challenge China's maritime claims, and offer an alternative vision for regional development that emphasizes transparency and sustainability. It's a classic power struggle, a rising power challenging the established one. But it's not just a two-player game. That's what makes the Indo-Pacific so fascinating. Let's bring in the other major players. First, India. And we can't forget Australia. Geographically, Australia sits at the crossroads of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Under this agreement, the US and the UK will help Australia acquire nuclear-powered submarines, a major technological and strategic step-up designed to counter growing regional threats. Member states have differing views on how to handle China, with some having close ties to Beijing and others, like Vietnam and the Philippines, being more wary due to territorial disputes in the South China Sea. China claims almost the entire sea, which conflicts with claims from Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei. An invasion or blockade of Taiwan would be a catastrophic event with global consequences. Not least because Taiwan produces the vast majority of the world's most advanced semiconductor chips. A third area of tension is the East China Sea, specifically the disputed Senkaku Dao Islands controlled by Japan but claimed by China. And of course, the Korean Peninsula remains a perennial source of instability, with North Korea's nuclear ambitions casting a long shadow over the entire region. Beyond these military and security issues, there's also an intense competition happening in technology and economics. The race for 5G dominance, control over supply chains for critical minerals and semiconductors, and the setting of international standards for artificial intelligence, all of this is part of the broader Indo-Pacific rivalry. Countries are realizing that economic security is national security. That's why we're seeing efforts by the US and its allies to de-risk or diversify supply chains away from China, trying to reduce their dependency on a single country for essential goods. So, to wrap it all up, the Indo-Pacific is this massive, complex, and incredibly important theater where the great powers of our time are competing for influence. You have the US and its allies trying to uphold a free and open order, and China seeking to establish its own sphere of influence. In between, you have dozens of other nations like India, Japan, Australia, and the ASEAN countries, all trying to navigate this rivalry to protect their own interests. The stakes are immense. The region's future will determine the flow of global trade, the direction of technological innovation, and the rules of the international system for the next century. It's not just a distant geopolitical chess game. The stability and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific directly affect our own security and economic well-being. Keeping an eye on what happens here is more important than ever. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explanations of the complex issues shaping our world. See you next time.